Evacuation. Something strange is happening in Crimea right now. Russians are quietly packing their bags and leaving. Not because of official evacuation orders, but out of fear. Flights are filling up, homes are being listed for sale, and families are disappearing without explanation. So what changed suddenly? What do they know that the public doesn't? And is Crimea really as secure as authorities claim? Or is something much bigger about to unfold? Stay with us, because the signals coming out of Crimea right now are impossible to ignore. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's breaking story focuses on Crimea, a region once presented as secure, stable, and firmly under Russian control. But right now, something unusual is happening. Increasing numbers of Russian civilians, officials' families, and even business owners are quietly leaving Crimea. This sudden movement has sparked intense speculation across international media and intelligence circles. Flights are filling up, long vehicle convoys are being spotted, and property listings are rapidly increasing. The question everyone is asking is simple but powerful: why now? For months, Crimea was portrayed as untouchable, heavily fortified, and far from the front lines. Yet recent developments suggest that perception may be cracking. People usually don't flee without reason, especially from a place marketed as safe. This isn't about routine travel or seasonal migration. The timing, scale, and secrecy all point to rising fear and uncertainty. Information leaks, military shifts, and infrastructure stress are creating a sense that something major could be approaching. When civilians start reacting before official announcements, it often signals deeper trouble beneath the surface. In today's video, we will carefully examine all the key factors driving this exodus, from military pressure and intelligence warnings to economic collapse and psychological fear. By the end, you'll understand why Crimea is no longer feeling safe for many Russians, and what this could mean next. One of the biggest reasons Russians are leaving Crimea right now is the growing military pressure around the peninsula. Over the past months, Ukrainian forces have steadily increased long-range strike capabilities, making areas once considered secure suddenly vulnerable. Strategic military sites, airfields, and supply depots in Crimea have reportedly come under repeated threat. Even when attacks are intercepted, the message is clear: Crimea is no longer out of reach. This changes everything for civilians living nearby. When people hear explosions, air defense sirens, or see military convoys rushing through cities, fear naturally spreads. Russian authorities may insist that everything is under control, but reality on the ground tells a different story. The presence of additional checkpoints, restricted zones, and emergency drills suggests preparation for escalation. Families with children, elderly relatives, or valuable assets often decide not to wait for worst-case scenarios. History shows that civilian movement often begins quietly before any major military event. Once confidence in security collapses, it rarely returns quickly. The psychological impact of potential strikes is just as powerful as actual damage. Living under constant tension is exhausting. People start asking themselves if staying is worth the risk. For many Russians in Crimea, the answer is becoming clear. Leaving early feels safer than trusting official reassurances that may come too late. This military uncertainty is a core driver behind the current wave of departures. Another critical factor behind the flight from Crimea is the quiet evacuation of officials' families and key personnel. This pattern has been observed in multiple conflicts throughout history and is often an early warning sign. When families of administrators, military officers, and government-linked individuals begin leaving, it signals that insiders may expect instability. These people usually have access to information long before the public does. They hear rumors, receive briefings, and notice shifts others miss. Reports suggest that school transfers, sudden resignations, and unexplained leaves are increasing across the region. While authorities deny any organized evacuation, the coordinated timing raises eyebrows. Civilians pay close attention to such signals. When people notice that those closest to power are quietly relocating, trust in official messaging weakens. The logic is simple: if everything is truly safe, why leave? This creates a domino effect. Ordinary residents start making similar decisions, fearing they may be left behind if conditions worsen. Even businesses linked to government contracts are reportedly scaling down operations. The departure of these families doesn't just reduce population numbers, it spreads anxiety. It transforms uncertainty into perceived inevitability. Once this mindset takes hold, reversing it becomes extremely difficult. This silent but powerful signal is playing a major role in accelerating the civilian exodus from Crimea right now. Economic pressure is another major reason pushing Russians out of Crimea. Since the conflict intensified, Crimea's economy has been under constant strain. Tourism, once a key income source, has sharply declined. Hotels sit half empty. Seasonal workers are leaving, and local businesses are struggling to survive. Sanctions have limited trade routes, increased prices, and reduced job opportunities. Everyday essentials are becoming more expensive, while wages fail to keep up. For families already worried about security, financial instability becomes the final push. Many residents rely on mainland Russia for supplies, pensions, or employment opportunities. Any disruption to transport links or infrastructure creates immediate fear. Rumors of potential power outages, water shortages, or transport disruptions amplify this stress. Property values are also falling, encouraging people to sell and leave before losses grow larger. When people sense that an area's economic future is uncertain, they act fast. Staying too long could mean being trapped with assets that can't be sold and incomes that vanish. This economic anxiety compounds military fear, creating a powerful motivation to leave. Crimea no longer represents opportunity for many Russians. Instead, it feels like a financial risk zone. This shift in perception is quietly reshaping population movement across the peninsula. Infrastructure vulnerability is another key reason Russians are fleeing Crimea. The region relies heavily on limited supply routes, including bridges, ports, and power connections. Any disruption to these lifelines can quickly create chaos. Past incidents have already demonstrated how fragile these systems can be. Even temporary disruptions caused widespread shortages and panic buying. Civilians remember those moments clearly. Now, with rising tensions, fear of renewed disruptions is growing. Emergency drills, fuel stockpiling, and increased security around infrastructure suggest authorities are worried too. When people see preparations for worst-case scenarios, confidence drops. Families begin asking practical questions. What happens if electricity fails, if water access is restricted, or if transport links are cut? These aren't abstract fears. They directly affect daily survival. Residents with the ability to leave often decide not to gamble. Infrastructure failure doesn't require constant attacks. A single successful strike or technical failure could have massive consequences. The risk feels too high for many. This concern isn't about panic. It's about risk calculation. When the cost of staying outweighs the inconvenience of leaving, people choose to go. Infrastructure uncertainty is quietly pushing Crimea's population toward the exits. Psychological fear plays a massive role in why Russians are leaving Crimea right now. War doesn't just damage buildings, it wears down the human mind. Living under constant tension, uncertainty, and conflicting information takes a toll. Sirens, rumors, and online footage create a sense that danger could strike at any moment. Even if nothing happens, the anticipation itself becomes unbearable. Parents worry about their children's safety, routines, and education. Elderly residents fear being trapped during emergencies. Social media amplifies fear by spreading images and speculation faster than official statements can respond. Trust in information sources erodes, leaving people to rely on instinct. That instinct often says, leave while you still can. Psychological fatigue builds slowly, then suddenly triggers action. People who once said they would never leave begin packing quietly. This fear doesn't need confirmation, it feeds on uncertainty. Authorities may attempt to project calm, but emotions spread faster than control. Once fear becomes normalized, mass movement follows. Crimea is now experiencing this invisible but powerful force. The decision to leave is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's simply exhaustion. This emotional pressure is one of the strongest drivers behind the current exodus. Information warfare and rumors are also accelerating the flight from Crimea. In modern conflicts, information moves faster than troops. Leaks, anonymous posts, and unverified reports circulate widely, shaping perception. Even when inaccurate, they influence behavior. Claims about upcoming offensives, secret negotiations, or evacuation plans spread quickly. When authorities deny these rumors without transparency, suspicion grows. People start believing unofficial sources more than official ones. This creates a dangerous environment where fear fills information gaps. Messaging meant to reassure sometimes backfires, especially when actions contradict words. For example, increased security measures can look like preparation rather than protection. Civilians interpret these signals emotionally rather than analytically. The lack of clear, trusted communication leaves residents guessing. In such conditions, leaving feels like the safest choice. Information chaos doesn't need to be true to be effective, it just needs to be believable. Crimea's residents are caught in this storm of narratives. With no clear picture of what's coming next, many choose mobility over uncertainty. This information fog is quietly pushing people toward the exits. Historical memory also influences why Russians are fleeing Crimea. People remember how quickly situations can change in conflict zones. Past wars have shown that areas labeled safe can become dangerous overnight. Residents recall previous evacuations, sudden border closures, and unexpected escalations. These memories shape decision-making. No one wants to repeat past mistakes of staying too long. Families discuss worst case scenarios, and decide it's better to leave early rather than risk being trapped. This collective memory spreads through communities, reinforcing caution. When neighbors leave, others follow. The movement becomes self-reinforcing. Even those unsure begin thinking, what if they know something I don't? This fear of missing the last chance to leave drives action. History teaches that delays can be costly. Crimea's residents are not just reacting to present events, but to lessons learned over decades. This historical awareness adds momentum to the current exodus. It turns individual choices into a broader trend. Once enough people act on this instinct, it becomes a wave. That wave is now visible across Crimea. International signals are another reason behind the current movement. Statements from foreign governments, intelligence leaks, and shifting diplomatic language are being closely watched. When international actors adjust travel advisories or issue warnings, civilians take notice. These signals often carry weight because they are perceived as less biased. Even subtle changes in tone can influence decisions. Residents interpret global attention as a sign that something significant may be coming. Increased media focus adds to this sense of urgency. When the world starts watching closely, people assume escalation is possible. This perception fuels precautionary behavior. Russians in Crimea are not isolated. They consume international news and analyze it themselves. When multiple sources suggest rising risk, staying feels increasingly uncomfortable. This external pressure reinforces internal fear. It confirms suspicions rather than calming them. International attention doesn't cause panic directly, but it validates existing anxiety. That validation pushes undecided individuals toward leaving. Crimea's situation is no longer local, it's global. And global scrutiny often precedes major events. This awareness is driving many to act now rather than later. All these factors together explain why Russians are fleeing Crimea right now. It's not one single event, but a convergence of military risk, economic stress, psychological fear, and information chaos. When these pressures align, civilian movement becomes inevitable. Crimea has shifted from being perceived as secure to uncertain. That shift alone is powerful enough to change behavior. People aren't waiting for official evacuation orders. They are acting based on instinct, experience, and risk calculation. This doesn't automatically mean catastrophe is guaranteed, but it does signal serious instability. Population movement is often one of the earliest indicators of changing realities. What happens next remains uncertain, but the trend itself speaks volumes. Crimea is entering a new phase, one defined by fear rather than confidence. Understanding these dynamics helps explain why the situation feels different now. This is not panic without reason. It's a response to layered pressure. As events continue to unfold, these movements will be closely watched by analysts worldwide. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest updates. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this situation will escalate further or calm down? Share this video with others who want clear, fact-based analysis without hype.